And we are live. I
Hooray!
know, right?
It
Oh
was
my
touch and go.
goodness.
So yay.
Was it?
It sure felt like it.
Well, I hear that. Actually, I don't remember what I was about to say.
Okay. You cannot have the stream playing at the same time because I
Yeah,
can
no,
hear it.
it's very strange.
Touch and go.
I was like, what is happening? Hold on, let me get rid of it. It's just a minute.
So yay.
So, for anybody who has joined us already, I had the bright idea to tune into the stream on our YouTube channel while we're streaming, so that I could see what it looked like in real time. I can tell you that that was not a good idea. That was so disorienting. Just now, I was like you saw my face. I was just like, wait, what is happening? Like it's so much. So not that, not today, not today. Maybe another time, or maybe when I figure out how to work the mute button in real time. Anyway, just it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Welcome. Hello. 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 Hello.
Who are you? Who are we? Why are we here?
Listen, I'm gonna need a minute.
That's
I'm gonna need a minute.
real
Uh,
and true and fair.
on today, I am. My name is Jill Bates Moore. As it says right there in the box, I guess. There's a box right there. I am half of the lawyer team at Dahlia Law Group. Dahlia Law Group is a Black woman owned law firm in Oakland, California, where we help people plan for what matters and to protect it. We practice in legacy and estate planning, probate, and litigation related to those areas. And yeah, that's that's my name and what the business is.
And how are you?
Well, who are you? Well, who's asking?
Uh, I am Alicia Holland. I am the other half of the lawyer team at Dahlia Law Group here in Weird Orange, Oakland.
Yeah, tell me about that. The so Alicia and I are not sitting in the same place right now. She is in Oakland, where well, she's in California, but we're both working remotely from somewhere other than the office. So she's in California, but I'm not. And so, tell me about the air quality and the. I'm seeing all of the apocalyptic pictures from my neighbors and
It is
friends and
creepy.
I mean, it's what is
They-
going on? There's fire. The
You
air.
know
So the
that?
air's on fire for people who don't know.
Yeah. You know that feeling where, like, we grew up in the Midwest. And so sometimes in the Midwest, you would know a storm was coming because the animals would be acting funny
Mm-hmm.
and they'd just be kind of jumpy and skitterish. Like, today, I am one of those animals because this sky is crazy looking. And this is the second day for it at my
Mm-hmm.
house that it's looked like this. Yesterday it was orange, but you could at least see the sun.
Mm-hmm.
Today it is this weird, eerie orange, and it looks like it's about to be nighttime, but it was like that at 10 o'clock this morning. And the other part of it that's wild is the air quality is some of the best air quality we've had in weeks. So I'm like,
Wow.
what is happening here? So I think the wind is blowing and the air quality is likely to get worse. I just had the news on. And so where I am is like 10 minutes from Oakland, about 10-15 minutes from Oakland, just farther south. And so they said it was already unhealthy for sensitive groups in Oakland. And at least the last time I checked here, you can't smell any smoke.
Okay.
And when I looked this morning, the air quality was not even moderate, it was good. But the sky was this weird orange color. I'm like, this is spooky. Like, I know everything is fine, but like it just has my nerves on edge because it don't look normal.
I'm gonna go with everything's not fine. I'm gonna push back on the idea that everything is fine. Now I don't know if it's the end of days, like my great grandmother used to say, but I'm not gonna go. It will be fine. It will be fine.
I'm
But
thinking of those moments in the Bible where they talk about the crucifixion, where it went to like pitch black dark at noonday. And I'm like, is something happening somewhere that I didn't read about? Should I have some different news on? Because this sky is like, I literally got up this morning and saw that sky and went and checked the windows around my house to see, like, okay, is there a fire somewhere near? Because why does the sky look like this? And I have windows open and I don't smell smoke. And what the devil is going on?
oh
That's
no,
that's what it feels like.
that's crazy. Okay, wait. I'm getting a message from Tony. Hi, Tony. Getting a message from Tony that she does not hear any sound, which I'm not sure. I'm actually not sure what to do about that because all of our sound levels are right and normal. Hang on. Nothing is muted. I did check. Um, oy, I don't know. Tony, can you I don't even know what to ask you to do. Hang on a second. I'm going to check some things on this end and just see if everything's all right. Lisa is saying she can hear. Hey, Lisa. Um,
Hey, Lisa. Lisa, can you hear both of us?
and she's saying she can hear us. She says I can hear them. Um,
Okay.
so Tony's going to double check her settings, and I am double checking on our end. Um, okay. All right. Right at the moment, I think that we're okay. I just want to check one other thing. Give me just a moment. And yeah, yeah, everything on our end seems to be broadcasting, but if she can't hear, then then something's got to be off. So, um, all right, we'll give it a second, and see.
Your speakers
So,
might be possessed by the same little demon that got my coffee grinder this morning.
should I ask about this?
It just has a sickly sound. I was able to work with it enough to at least get enough to get a cup of coffee,
Well, that's
but not
good
before
for
spilling a bunch
everybody.
of coffee beans and then
Oh,
putting the coffee in the mug to discover a hairline crack that had coffee pouring everywhere. This is what the day has looked like. So when I say we barely made it,
okay, okay, okay. This is
yeah. It's like, yeah, if it wasn't for this live stream, I might be tempted to just go back to bed and try again tomorrow.
You know what? I have to tell you, if it were not for the commitments that we already made today, including this live stream, meeting this morning, and some other stuff on the calendar today, I might have called in unable today
Right.
on account of I cannot. I don't know. So with
We
all of
would have
it,
been closed in on today.
yeah, with all that's going on, how are you feeling? And we might still be. Okay, so I just want to put that out there for whatever it's worth. Um, with all that's going on, how are you feeling?
I'm tired. Like, that's all I know right now. I'm tired.
Yeah, yeah.
Because this is after, what, 4 days of 100-degree heat
Hmm.
in this non-air conditioned place.
So I think that's one thing that I know when I first moved to California, it caught me by surprise. Living there now for all of these years, it's completely normal to me, but but people don't have air conditioning in the Bay Area for the most part. Like
Yeah, unless
a
you've
lot
had
of
your house
houses,
redone.
yeah, a lot of houses just don't have it residentially. I mean, commercial places do, of course, but residentially, not so much because typically it would only get hot during fire season, right? Like for a couple few weeks
A day.
during the no, well more than a day. But
But it would be kind of sporadic.
okay, I mean maybe where you live, but where I live, not so much. Like we get a good couple of weeks of solid hot, and then you know, and then it would just shift. And also microclimates, so different temperatures during the day. Even if it was super hot during the day, it will be it'll be cooler in the evening. But these days, I don't know, these past few years, I'm like, what microclimates? What? No, 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 no.
If by micro you mean layers of hot,
Yeah,
it was
yeah,
108 degrees on Sunday.
yeah,
It was too hot to even have a light bulb on.
yeah,
Like, I couldn't do anything but just lay in front of the fan.
yeah, yeah. That type of heat takes the energy out of you. It takes the energy out of you. Oy. Okay, Tony is back with us. She had a reset and she said that she can hear just fine now. Thank
Okay,
you for
let's say it
being
all
here.
again.
Thanks for being here, Tony. Thanks for being here, Lisa. Lisa says that she's gonna have to leave. So, um, but I'm glad that you made it. Thank you. And Lisa says she will catch the replay. Okay. No worries.
Appreciate you.
And thank you for that reminder. For folks who may not know, all of these all of these live streams are saved on our channel. And if you're new with us today, if this is your introduction to us today, then welcome to Real Humans Processing in Real Time. The structure of the live stream conversation typically goes like the first bit of time we check in with each other because how you are doing is a real question. Um, for us, Alicia and I do not have what we would term work life balance because we don't see work and life as separate things. We don't work to live and we don't live to work. We it's all in there together. So
All in the mix.
yep. So how you're doing is definitely a part of the life in which the work happens. So so yeah. So there's that, and we'll talk about the topic in just a minute. So when you come back for the replay, pro tip: if you're not interested in how we're doing, then you can fast forward about 15 minutes and we'll get right to the topic for you. No worries.
By then, we have usually also worked out our tech shenanigans as well.
Yeah, I mean, we come with shenanigans. That's how it is. You asked how I'm doing, and I appreciate that question. Thank you. Um, I find myself just a little energy depleted. Right, I feel really motivated, like mentally and spiritually, um, but this energy in this body is like, oh, tired, tired. Um, as the seasoned saints say, plum wrung out. Plum wrung out. Um, my sleeping schedule continues to do what it does. I think I went to bed at like 7 in the morning the other day. So like that's been a thing. And you know that also I don't know, like sleep also affects energy levels, but I'm also not in a season of fighting myself about anything, including my sleep. So whatever it is, that's what it'll be. Um, and I am feeling really present to being alive and working um, during this time, during global pandemic, during insane wildfires, during all of it. And I know that we as sort of communal people have societally, we have really normalized, you know, continuing to, right? Continuing to work, continuing to school, continuing to, you know, fill in the blank during this time. And like even in the midst of right this time, and so there's this revisioning of normal that feels disconnected from its context, and that's starting to show up in a way for me that is exhausting. That's the truth. It is showing up in the way that people communicate with us. Like, it's happened, you and I have had these conversations, it's happened a few times here recently where we've gotten communications that are like wholly extractive, like get this, do that, what is this, you know. And sometimes they have that tone and sometimes they don't, but the content is still the same, and they feel completely devoid of any like recognition of where we are, right? That like I actually heard myself say to another human recently, like, I am a human, I am an actual person, right? Like, I'm a person doing this in the same context that everybody else is, that we're all doing whatever we're doing, right? Like, I'm living through and loving through and some days struggling through the same thing that we all are. Who are we talking to when we talk to each other, and how? Right? Like, this it's not some anonymous chatbot with an automated response by a computer. Like, it's me. It's Jill. I'm an actual person. Hi. And
My eyeballs see your eyeballs.
right. And so, like, yeah, so managing being human at such a time as this, and humaning with other humans at such a time as this is feeling a little exhausting. So, and also, it is well. Even though it's not all right, it is well. And plug for the homie Jovan Watkins, who's an amazing vocalist, has a brand new single coming out on September 25th, which is my brother's birthday, so it's an auspicious day. But it is his versioning of that classic song, It As Well. So um, we'll try to find a link
Yeah,
so that you can
it's
so
a
that you can
little sample.
yeah, so you can experience that. All right. Thank you for indulging that time. We're like 20 minutes into the stream at this point. So should we talk about grantors?
Well, I think we should.
Should we talk about them? Okay. Today we are continuing our conversation about the various roles that are present in a trust. And while we get that organized for you and give you that overview, those of you who have been here before, this is time for you. We want to know how you are doing as well. How are you? How do you do? How do you be? Right now? Those are real questions. This is the legacy live stream. Those are issues of legacy. How you are is a legacy issue. So chat to us, talk to us, and definitely ask your questions. We are in a live stream format intentionally so that you can engage with us, so that your questions, so that to the extent you have questions that we can address, that we can do that right now without a follow-up email, without setting an appointment. You can get the answers that you're looking for right now. Lisa says she has to watch us so that her kids don't, one, put her in a home, and two, sell all her
Yeah.
sewing shit for $1 when she dies. We are must-see programming.
Yeah.
Thank you, friend.
She is trying to avoid the waiting to exhale. Everything is $1 garage sale.
Right. So, Grantors, we are continuing the conversation today about the roles that are present in a trust. We have talked about what a trust is. We have talked about what makes a trust and how to set that up so that, one, it's legally compliant, so that you have the things that you absolutely must have, which if you were here for that session, or you've already restreamed it, then there's only 4 things that you need. But if you only do those 4 things, you might end up with a little bit of a mess on your hands. So we talked about how not to make a mess. We also talked about what a beneficiary is, right? That's one of the roles of the trust. We talked about the all-important trustee role last week. That tends to be the role that people know the name of, right? That's the one where people are like, well, I'm the trustee, and they have various thoughts about what the trustee is and what the trustee's role does. So we broke that down for you last week. It is not too late to ask questions about that. If you were here last week, or even if you weren't, and you have questions about that, pop them in the chat box, and
We
we will.
still know the answers.
Well, some of them. We'll give you the ones that we know and the ones that we don't. We are generous with I don't know. But we won't leave you hanging. We will, if it's something that
We'll find out.
that we need to research, we'll do that. And if it's something that we need to refer you to somebody else to, or to another resource for, we'll absolutely do that. So don't worry about asking a question. And some of y'all just like to play Stump the Chump because that's just where you are in your life. Bring it here. Bring it. I told you, we are generous with I don't know. So, yeah. And so today we are talking about the third role in the trust, and that is the all-important grantor. And I don't know if a grantor gets enough shine or gets enough attention, honestly, because we just don't always think about it, right? We talk about the stuff in the trust. We talk about the folks who are managing the trust, right? We talk about the trustee, and we talk about where the stuff goes when somebody dies, but that somebody is actually a role, and it's the most important role of the entire trust. It's the one with all the control. It's the one without which we don't even start having a conversation about a trust. The grantor, Grantor, might also be called a trustor, Trustor. They might also be called a settlor, Setttlor, right? And that OR.
Welcome to the spelling bee.
Right. I know. Hey, Petty LaBelle.
Give me your trophy. May I have it in a sentence?
So that OR is the giver, right? Anytime, whether you see trustor, settlor, lessor, mortgagor, right? It is in legal terminology. Anytime somebody is an or, they are giving some right. Okay. So The settlor, grantor, trustor, we tend to use the term grantor because I actually find that term to be a little bit more descriptive, because the grantor is the person who is granting ownership of their stuff to this trust. Okay, so that's the terminology that we're going to use today, but I will put the alternatives in the chat box in a second. In terms of what we hope you'll take away from today's conversation, we hope that you'll be able to identify what a grantor is and why that's necessary. We hope that you'll also be able, or we intend for you to also be able to identify some of the powers that the grantor has. And I think those are really the main two that come to mind for me for this role. Any other sort of learning objectives, Alicia, that come to mind for you?
No, I think that covers it. Yeah, because this one is one. Yeah, who can do it is the only other one, which is quick, but it's an important note.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you were recapping the roles, the imagery that came to mind for me, we talked about last week the trustee being kind of the muscle that's got to do all of the work. And what it made me think of is an analogy of a car, particularly when you have an adult driving some person to the skating party, because you have the trustor or the grantor is the one that gets to start the car and turn the key. So if they don't do that, we are never going to the skating party.
Mm-hmm.
But then you got the trustee as the engine that is making this car go and get to where it needs. And this is all for the benefit of kiddo in the back seat that's going to the skating party.
Mm-hmm.
And all of these things are working together to make it happen.
Yeah. That's a good visual. That's a good visual for you car people, for those of you who are mechanically inclined. I won't even bring up my coffee cup example again. I think your car visual is so much better than my coffee cup visual. All right. Okay, so what is a grantor? Go way, way back to what is it? Maybe 1, 2, 3, or 4 episodes ago, when we were talking about what the requirements are to have a valid trust, right? We said that there has to be mental capacity. There has to be intention to establish a trust. There has to be stuff. And there has to be a beneficiary, right? The trust has to hold something for the benefit of someone else. Well, that the someone else we already talked about. That's the beneficiary. The stuff, that's pretty obvious. And if you this is a talkback moment. I'm just going to put a pin in the sentence that I started. I do that sometimes. Just stumble with me, okay? This is a talkback moment. If it would be useful to you all for us to have a conversation about stuff in a trust, we hadn't intended to do that, but if it would be useful, we will. And so if you have questions about the type of stuff you put in a trust, like what can go in there, how you get it in there, and that sort of thing. Actually, I'm talking myself into it now. Hold on.
What to keep out of there? No, that seems like a really good one. We're going to do that episode.
If that's going to be useful to you, let us know. It sounds like Alicia just said we're going to do it anyway. But yeah, let us know. Talk back to us about that. But as far as those first 2 requirements, I'm taking my pen out and going back to my sentence.
Good job remembering where the pen was.
I had my tea this morning. There was caffeine, so I'm the body is sluggish, but the mind is here. I'm here. So those two requirements, that there has to be mental capacity and there has to be an intention to actually establish a trust. Well, mental capacity and intention attach to a person, and I'm just going to let you guess what person they attach to. Who has to have the mental capacity?
You do.
Who is you?
The grantor,
There we
the
go.
person that's creating this thing.
Exactly. And who has to have the intention to establish the trust?
You do. The grantor, the person creating this thing.
We're going to need a remix for this song. I don't think
I was
anybody's
thinking I needed cards for the visual.
right. I don't think people are going to like our original version. Um, but I'm not a song maker, so
I'm
so
not
yeah.
a singer, so we're good.
Listen. But speaking of singers, okay, I know this is completely random, but this has done my heart so much good. The versus battle between Patti LaBelle and Gladys Knight that is going down
Oh,
on this Sunday at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard
and
Time.
not wait.
It has done my heart so much good. Do you understand the paint peeling squealing that is going to be happening here?
That part.
I am going to be so annoying. I'm going to be so annoying.
Yeah,
It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be
we're hooking
fantastic.
that sucker up to the big screen.
Right. To figure out how to make the big speakers work and all of it. I'm so excited. But yes, so a person has to have the intention to establish the trust and has to have the mental capacity to express that intention and to set up the trust. So that person is the grantor. The the grantor role I associate with control. This is the original seat of control for the trust. And remember, the type of trust that we're talking about is a probate avoidance trust, right? When we are talking about the trust, we have in mind a probate avoidance trust. We are talking about typically that's going to be a revocable living trust. There are other types of trusts, and if it would be useful to you for us to talk about those other types of trusts, let us know. But that's what we have in mind. So I would like to spend some time talking about powers and control from the grantor's seat. What do you think, Holland?
I like it. One
Okay.
thing I think it may be obvious, but I think it's important to at least say out loud really quickly before we shift to that is when we are talking about capacity and mental capacity, one of the pieces of capacity that's involved there is you have to be at least 18 to be the grantor of a trust. Because when you are creating the trust, it is a contract. And so part of capacity is also having legal capacity, not just mental capacity, but legal capacity to create that trust. And so in the US, unless you have been legally emancipated, then that equals you need to be at least 18.
Yeah. Yeah. What are you want to start talking about what some of the powers are of the grantor, and I can talk a little bit about the context for why if you don't want to, but or if you want me to chime in with that, but do you want to start having that conversation?
Yeah, so with the powers that the grantor has, number one, we said they have the intention to create this thing, and so they have the power to actually do that as well. They have the power to name who all of the other roles are involved. So they get to name who the trustee is going to be, they get to name who the beneficiaries are going to be. In addition to getting to name the trustees, they can name themselves as the initial trustee, so they don't have to relinquish their control when they create this, and then they get to name who's going to be next in line if it's not me. The grantor also has the power to name what the triggering event is for when the successor trustee comes up. They get to name all of the provisions for how somebody might be removed or replaced what's required if they want to resign from that role as trustee. They even have the power to name, if it's somebody other than me, they can name who their successor is if they wanted to do that. So if it's, I name Jill to be the successor trustee of my trust, I can even give her the power to say, if she decides to resign, who should be her replacement in it. Now, one of the really nice features about what I think of is a really nice feature about a probate avoidance trust is we always think about when we are doing estate planning, often people will come in and say, well, I'm trying to plan for this and I'm trying to plan for that, so that for instance, when my kids are older, I want them to be able to do this and da 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 da, and going on and on and on about when my kids are 30 when we're talking about a 1-year-old. And so we don't know what's going to happen in the life of that little person over 29 years and how that's going to go. And so one of the great powers that the trustor has is the power to amend and modify this trust. So you don't have to have the one size fits all for 30 years scenario where you're trying to see around all of these invisible corners and plan for everything, because you have the power to come back and make changes as life situations change, whether it be the situations in your own life or even sometimes the situations in the lives of the people that you have put in these various roles, where maybe it would actually be more burdensome to be in the seat that you had originally assigned them to. Then another power that the trustee has is to say what happened, or excuse me, the power that the grantor has is to say what happens within our trust. So they get to say things like, how do I want my trust administered if I am incapacitated? So they get to give the instruction for who gets priority in using the things. Is it just me as the grantor, or do I want to name my spouse or my children to also get it? I get to say, do I want you to prioritize me before them, or prioritize all of us together? Then I get to say what happens to the stuff that I've put in my trust, as far as who gets it and when they get it. If I want to put some structure on when they get it, I get to say that too. So if I want to say, don't give it to them all at once, because most of us when we are 18 would go out and buy, for me, it would have been Twizzlers and Dr. Pepper, or perhaps oatmeal raisin cookies. I was really into those at that time. And so I would have spent all my money on that. And so did you push the mute button?
I totally did. I was drinking my water.
You just gonna have to let us hear the glug glug sounds.
Nobody wants to hear that.
We don't want you testing our hearing to see if we're just... That happened when my brother was a child in middle school. They had a teacher, they were evil little children, and they had a teacher that had a hearing aid. And so they would play pranks on the teacher and would coordinate to all just move their lips and have her steady turning up her hearing aid because she could not hear the children. And then they would get the biggest kick out of it when, like, somebody would say something on the intercom system or somebody would come into the classroom. They drove that teacher into retirement. They were evil little children.
Oh, so she had turned her hearing aid up, thinking that they were actually talking to her, and she couldn't hear them because it was too low. So when a normal volume sound came in, it exploded in her head. That's terrible.
Yeah. Evil.
That's terrible. Oh,
evil children.
Children. Oh, goodness.
So we'll just take the glug glug so that we are not thinking that you are trying to prank us.
No, I will just have to be reminded about the mute button. Nobody wants to hear that. Nobody wants to hear that. I really appreciate all of these powers of the grantor. And when I stop talking, because you all know I don't multitask, when I stop talking, I will start summarizing some of them in the chat box so that they show up there for you. I really wanted to just take a moment before we continue talking about the grantor's powers, and to to sort of tie us to our our operating context and the opportunity that these powers create, right? Because remember, the grantor is the one who is granting ownership of stuff to the trust. Now, the grantor can be the initial trustee, but they don't have to be. The grantor can be the initial manager of the trust, but they don't necessarily have to do that depending on the situation and depending on what type of trust we're setting up. So think about this person as just handing over. This is my charger for my headset. They're just handing it over to another person to care for. Remember, last week we gave the example of Granny's handbag. We're just handing over Granny's handbag. Well, why? Why would, just to sort of situate us in context, why would we do that? Why would a grantor do that? Maybe it's because they fear that they won't be able to take care of their own things at some point. Maybe that's happening even now. Maybe it is because because somebody told them they needed to do this. We get that a lot.
Or it sounds like a good idea.
Seems like a good idea. It's adulting, and that's true.
I saw an article on the Google.
Right? No, all of that is true. Maybe they just want to avoid probate, which is a totally good enough reason to do this. But also, it is at its root so that their values, the grantor's values, can be expressed in how their things are taken care of and distributed from the trust. The trust is an opportunity to really put our values into motion, right? To really make them show up in the world in a physical way with the stuff that we control. And when I start talking like this, Alicia is like, listen, not everybody does that woo-woo, like that woo-woo moon worship stuff that you do. Say this to regular people. So look at her eyebrows. Anytime I'm talking, look at Alicia's eyebrows. If her eyebrows start to twitch, that means that I'm not saying something right. So
that also might mean I just drew them on Cricut.
So here's what I mean. Here's what I mean by that. There's a lot of conversation about generational wealth, right? There's a lot of conversation these days about creating and sustaining legacies. And that might mean different things to different people. But I would offer that what all of those conversations come back to is values. And whose values? The grantor's values. That's who we are talking about. And so, if I, as the grantor, have a value that education is of the utmost importance, right? If I value education above all other things, then the way that that value can show up in the world for future generations, and as a result is a part of my legacy, right, is that I structure my trust in such a way that distributions from the trust, and I want you to understand distribution literally, right? I am distributing, and who is I? Who distributes? The trustee distributes something from the trust, okay? So in order to sort of carry out this value or express this value that I have around education, I can structure distributions to come from my trust for the purpose of education. Because Alicia just said that one of the powers that I have as the grantor, because remember, this is my stuff. Like, this is my stuff. One of the powers that I have as the grantor is that I get to say what the distribution is for. I can say what it's conditioned on. I can say who it goes to. I can say when it goes to them. I can either make it an age, or I can make it a particular benchmark, right? Some benchmarks are more problematic than others, right? So if my benchmark is like, you know, my cousin can have my house, right? When they graduate with their PhD in astrophysics, I want to give them my house as a graduation gift, right? Well, if my cousin is a fine arts painter, the likelihood that
Struggle.
they are ever going to graduate with a PhD in astrophysics might be pretty remote. So,
They might struggle a little bit with the math.
but well, I mean, just painters know math. Painters can do math, but the point that I'm making is that before I get too far afield, because I can get caught up in a hypothetical. Okay, I can. But before I get too far afield, the connecting our values to the decisions in the trust is part of the inherent power of the grantor. And this, I submit, is the reason why we do this, right? Whatever that reason sort of shows up as, the reason that we articulate that brings us to the lawyer's office, or that brings us to the live stream, or brings us to the website, or to the class or whatever for these resources, it's the value that's underlying it. When I as the grantor say I want to avoid probate, part of what I'm expressing is a value, one, for privacy, but also so that my resources in the trust are maximized for the benefit of the beneficiaries that I've identified. I want to keep everything that I possibly can in that container for the people or institutions that I've set it aside for. So thanks for letting me be a little long-winded about that. But as you all know, I think that context is important. Like the practical application, the what are we here for of it all is important. So I'm going to go back to the keyboard. I'll turn the microphone back to you, Elise.
I think that's an important point, and it's actually reminding me of a conversation that I had yesterday, which is, I think, really big to note here is when we're talking about these things like, for instance, if it's a value for education and setting up the structure for what you want to happen with those things are important. And that really speaks to a money thing in the sense of I have a bunch of money, for instance, that I can dole out for people's education. One of the things that you can also do in your trust to speak to value is to speak to some of the aspects in your world that are part of your heritage and legacy, that it's important for you that some family legacy and tradition be passed down in a particular way. And so the conversation I was having was somebody is talking and we're working on a plan together, and they're giving me, oh, well, I only have these couple of things that have like this little bit of value and this little bit of value. And I gave them the example of something that we've talked about here, said, well, you also need to write down if you have particular preferences about some of the other items that you have that don't have monetary value to other people, but it is important to you that they get handled in a particular way, then that's what we want to know about as well. And that just opened a whole new door in the conversation because they said, oh, I have these particular family items that I care a lot about. What happens with those? And I'm like, I care more about that than your car. The car is going to take care of itself. Like, let's not worry about the car. But these other familial things that you have, like, because when I said that, it was like, you could tell it came from the belly button, from somebody that doesn't normally speak that way. When they say, yes, I care a lot about what happens to those Like, yes, tell me if that's what I want to know about. And so, as the grantor, that is a power that you have, is to actually lay out some of those things. So, one of the examples that we've talked about, I think in our early, like probably episode one of why we do this and what brings us to this work, an example that I gave is my mother's Bible that's in my granny's Bible cover that has significant mementos in there from people that have been important and significant either in my life or to the people in my life, all of those things. If you're looking at this, it would not garner 25 cents at the garage sale if you put it out on the table. Like somebody be like, what am I supposed to do with this? But that is significant to me. And I know that that would be significant to my brother to have because it would link him to me and to all of those people. And he knows that I'm the one that keeps that sort of stuff. And so it is important enough that that shows up in my trust, that this is who I want to get this. And so those are some of those values that you get to portray as the grantor of actually making those values known to people that are dispensing with these things so that they can know exactly what to do with the things that we're talking about here.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that's really important. And as we sort of prepare to close here, I think that in terms of an actionable item or homework item that you can do, I want to revisit two. I want to bring them back up here. One is to really think about what your values are. Just write down, just free write like five values, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, not in, or just 5 bullet points. And the first 5 things that come to mind for what your values are, not things that you do, not ways that you are productive, not things that you think are cute or nice, or not necessarily people that you love or institutions that you serve, right? But the love itself is the value, right? The people that you love are where the value is expressed, right? The service, right? The community service or the social service, that's the value. The institutions or places or communities where you contribute your service, right? Those are the places where that value is acted out. So think about some values, right? Do that. And hold that. Keep those notes. Keep those notes with whatever notes you're taking as we're having these legacy conversations. Keep those together because that is going to be your scaffolding, believe it or not, for your legacy and estate planning. The legacy part is the story. That is the work. The estate planning is the tools that we use to try to express that legacy, or to have that legacy show up in the world when you are not able to physically show up to make it happen yourself. But the legacy part is this part. So thing one, values. Write them down, and don't study hard. You know who you are. Whatever comes up, that's it. Whatever comes up first, that's probably it. The second thing is going to be a little bit more stuff related. And this is one that I know that we've talked about before, even if we didn't talk about that first homework item before. This one is to walk around your house and to identify things that do not have necessarily monetary value, or that may not appear to have a great deal of value to somebody who was a stranger just looking. If somebody was at an estate sale or at a garage sale at your house, what are the things that mean something to you that they wouldn't be able to identify the value of that thing by looking? Identify those things. You don't have to do anything with the list, but do write them down. Write them down, because those are going to be the things when you start putting your legacy and estate plan together. Those things, you're going to want to make sure that those things are included. So Alicia's mother's Bible that is in her grandmother's cover, that needs to be in there, right? Like my, like whatever those things are for you, identify those things. If there are questions, right now we are still available for questions. So please don't be shy about asking those. If you can't think of questions right now or aren't really in a position to get to your keyboard, no problem. We will put our contact information in the chat box as always. Actually, I think it's already in there. And you can reach out to us on any of those channels, and we'll respond to you. Alicia, was there anything else that you wanted to add or to close us out?
I think you did an excellent job. That was good homework. Especially as you were saying it, what I was thinking was, if you go through your house and think of if somebody was walking through and picked up something and said, "Oh, this is junk," and just tossed it aside, and it would hurt your feelings and hurt your heart in like a real cut deep way, then that one should probably be on your list. Mm-hmm. Like if it's one of those that like, yeah, I've been meaning to get rid of that anyways, then they helped you. Yeah. But if it's the one that you would try to fight little Marie Kondo over, then it should probably be on your list.
Okay. And now that we're fighting Marie Kondo, I think it's time to go. Have a good week, everybody. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being here with us. Thank you for sharing your time with us. And thank you for sharing this information with somebody else. If this is useful to you, if you have found any usefulness here at all, please share what was useful to you with somebody else. If you did not find any usefulness in this and you're still here, then let's talk offline about how you're spending your time, and also give us some feedback. We'll take that feedback
of what would be useful
so that we can make this space more useful to you. But also, like, seriously, if you're not getting anything out of this and you're still here, then we really do want to talk to you about maybe some other things you could be doing.
I feel judged just because I watched a little reality TV.
Okay, good day. Goodbye, everybody. Have a good week.
See you next Wednesday.
See you next week, next Wednesday at 12:30 Pacific time, right here.